On this episode, I welcome Jamie Banks, who is the CEO and founder of Change of Scenery Swimwear. On this episode, we're going to talk about social media marketing, including influencing and LTK models. We'll talk about her growth strategy and how she plans to grow the brand. We'll also talk a little bit about AI and how she's going to handle that. And we'll also talk about the supply chain and sustainable swimwear. So welcome aboard, Jamie.
Thank you so much for having me.
So to start us off, can you tell us a little bit about your backstory, how you went through Kate Spade and how that led to where you're at now? And for those like myself who are not overly familiar with the fashion industry, could you break it down for us that may not be familiar?
Sure. A quick fashion industry 101. I am a fashion designer by background. All sorts of people start fashion companies, people that come from marketing and fashion design and production and sales. My background's design, which means that all the other parts of the business have been very challenging, let's say, in launching my own business. But I've been very lucky to work for some amazing brands. I was at Kate Spade for over 10 years, overseeing about 20 categories in womenswear. I was the design director at Shoshana, which for those who don't know, Shoshana was the first person to start a swim brand that sold bikini tops and bottoms separately, which was very revolutionary because it meant that a woman who wasn't the same size on top and the bottom could buy a suit that fit her. So that's where I really fell in love with swimwear. And I worked for a brand called Millie, which was another women's contemporary brand. And I've just been really lucky to have really different experiences. It sort of like led me to be prepared to start my own business today. Kate Spade produces overseas. Millie has an atelier in the back. An atelier is like a full sewing room with pattern makers and sewers and cutters. And I really learned a lot about how a factory works and having to keep the sewers busy all the time and efficiencies and just like the relationship with the factory on a daily basis there. So my background is really in women's sort of called high contemporary. So, dresses around $400 to $800 is generally the price point. Selling in department stores like Nordstrom, Neiman Marcus, Saks, Bloomingdale's. And I never thought I would have my own brand. I was not that fashion designer. A lot of fashion designers grow up from day one from school saying, this is all leading up to me having my own brand. But I had entrepreneurs as parents. And I always wish they would just get a paycheck and vacation days like everyone else. But here I am. No paycheck, no vacation days.
What kind of business did they run?
My parents owned a hobby store. So it was a hobby store and a toy store. And it's like the most magical childhood you could ask for because my dad brought me home toys every single day from work. And I had absolutely no idea that he had to pay for them. Even though he paid wholesale, he still had to pay for them, which now I understand much better.
Let's talk about how your experience at Kate Spade has led you to where you're at now at Change of Scenery.
So I spent most of my career at Kate Spade. I started their ready-to-wear collection. Ready-to-wear is a clothing line that is available to be purchased on the spot, as opposed to custom-made clothing. So I started their ready-to-wear collection in 2007. By 2020, I was overseeing 20 licensed and in-house categories there, which was an unbelievable opportunity to work on sleepwear, outerwear, eyewear, fashion accessories, ready-to-wear, and swimwear, of course, was one of them. Kate Spade, if anyone is, trying to figure out their career path and what's going to lead them up to, where they're ultimately going to get. I think like if you're lucky enough to work for such an iconic brand like Kate Spade, like always take that opportunity, because to be inside those four walls and understand how they became that kind of iconic brand is invaluable. Above all, at Kate Spade, I learned the power of brand and the power of storytelling. And that is something that is so important to me with Change of Scenery now. And I'm always asked, why was Kate Spade so magnetic in the days under Kate and the days under Deborah Lloyd, who became the creative director after Kate? It's because in every single situation, everybody that worked at that company, and when I started in 2007, we were 60 people at Kate Spade. Maybe by 2020, there might have been like 500 people in corporate, not to mention the stores. Every single person that worked for Kate Spade thought that the company was magical, drank the Kool-Aid, was the customer, understood the entire customer experience, and it was thought out through everything from the logo to the color palette to the social media experience, the way that we answered the phone when you called, the way that you were experienced being in a Kate Spade store. Anytime someone thinks of Kate Spade, they think of the same exact thing consistently: color, joy, encouraging you to lead a more interesting life. And that's not by accident. That was very carefully crafted inside Kate Spade by every single team, not just the marketing team. So that's definitely the biggest thing that I learned there. And branding is something that I really took with me to starting Change of Scenery.
So let's stick to storytelling for a second. I teach business strategy, and we often talk about mission statements, and we don't really mention story too often, even though story is a part of how companies brand themselves. Often we don't even really memorize the mission statements of where we work, or we might in general know what they are. Could you tell us about branding and the power of story, and if mission is important?
Yeah, so I actually remember the mission of Kate Spade like ingrained in my brain. Our motto was live colorfully for a long time. The mission statement, no, I don't remember every word, but it had something very much to do with that we encourage our customer to lead a more interesting life. And when you think about that, that really is like what a brand can do, right? Like in fashion, we're not curing diseases, we're not, doing something that somebody really needs, but we make people happy. And so like, how can you design clothing that makes a woman feel happier, that encourages her to do more exciting and interesting things, that, makes her feel like the prettiest girl at the party or the most special she's ever felt? That was really the mission of Kate Spade, all summed up into we encourage her to lead a more interesting life. So similarly at Change of Scenery, I also, want to encourage women to not lead a more interesting life, but just lead like a more confident life, lead a life that has more joy, that where she's not held back by feeling uncomfortable what she's wearing. My target customer is 30 to 55 years old. And a lot of times when a woman gets to that age, she's still pretty young, but she's not as confident in her body and how she feels in clothes as she used to be. So, we're focused on this modern busy woman. We're giving her classic and sophisticated swim and resort wear, which is what we make: swimwear and cover-ups and dresses that have to do with resort life. That is, so flawlessly fit in such beautiful print and color, that is designed for her body and designed for where she's going, so that, she can wear this clothing, feel happy, feel joy, and sort of like not worry about what she's wearing, just sort of live her life.
All right. So could you go more into what differentiates your product, or what makes it unique, and why you started it?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I've worked on a lot of women's categories, and I always loved swim so much. When I decided to start a brand, I think there's a lot of categories that are sort of just like rocking and rolling, like sleepwear. There's everything you could really need. Outerwear, there's a lot of technical innovation, but like design wise, there's everything you could need. In swim, I felt like there really was a white space. And I think that's really what's important. Like I decided to write a business plan, and I wasn't even sure if I was going to start a business, but through the process of the business plan, which was sort of like very therapeutic, I started identifying like, who's the target customer? Is there a target customer? Is there a white space? And it just really felt like in swim, of all categories, there was this big white space where there was swim targeting 20 somethings. And I think this applies to a lot of product categories. There was product targeting 20 somethings, very sexy, a little bit skimpier, neon colors. And there's a lot of swim that targets maybe like 55, 60 plus, which is modesty swim. It has a lot of, compression and coverage and all these things. But a woman 30 to 55 doesn't need all that yet. She just can't really dress like a 20-year-old. So really through writing the business plan, I started feeling more and more like this was an opportunity and something that wasn't being addressed. But yeah, I love swim. It's a joyful space. Anytime a woman needs a bathing suit, it's for something good. Nobody likes to try on bathing suits or wear bathing suits, but it's always for a good thing. She's always going on vacation or going to be with family and friends or somewhere beautiful. And And I became very passionate about this idea of designing the perfect suits for her to make her feel sexy and chic. What makes us different from other brands? I don't know how obvious this is to people outside the fashion industry, but a lot of swimwear brands are designed or founded by swim models, actually, swimwear models and influencers. Socialites, things like that. So what ends up happening is that the swimwear market in marketing really looks like it's designed for women with the proverbial perfect body who are shown on some tropical island that you'll never be on, not a child in sight, not like any family to attend to, like no responsibilities at all. She's just like laying on a yacht with this, perfect body or whatever is considered the perfect body. But the customer, or my customer at least, is taking care of everyone else in the family, her husband, her partner, her kids, hosting a party. She just had a baby. She's like getting all the beach toys together, like nothing like what these other brands show in their marketing. And I was determined to be different. And I was determined to never lose sight of the customer that I'm designing for and not try to be everything to everyone. I'm just trying to be everything to her, to this one, specific type of customer. She never gets to sit on a lounge chair. She never gets to just like sit with a cocktail at a pool party, but that's fine. So I want her to feel comfortable all the time. I want her to feel put together. I have a lot of women text me when they're packing for vacation and they say, thank you so much for making packing so easy. That's my favorite text to get because that's really what the goal is. And I think that's really what sets us apart.
I just wanted to tie in now to your specific marketing. So you told me about your target market. Is there like certain marketing things that you're doing to reach that target market?
So something very different that I never planned on doing, but has sort of become the most important thing for us has been in-person events, which we're sort of working out what that means as far as marketing goes. But I realized when we launched the website that then people had to find the website. And as we didn't have the budget or the know-how for, Facebook and Instagram ads right away, sort of word of mouth started taking off like pretty quickly. Swim is very hard for women. So when you find one that fits, swim's a great category because you get a repeat customer. Anyone that finds a great bathing suit is so thrilled to tell all of their friends because their friends also think it's a hard category to find. And we started doing these in-person events where a bunch of girlfriends, somebody hosts, one of my friends or a friend of a friend hosts the party at their home. And so it's a very like safe, private space to try on such a personal item like a bathing suit. It's really fun. Like we found a way to make trying on bathing suits fun. And it's just a bunch of girlfriends. There's wine, there's a cheese board, and everyone's trying on bathing suits and everyone's giving each other their opinion, which sounds a little scary, but actually like, unless you always go to a private beach, like you are going to have to be in front of other people in the bathing suit. So it might as well be your best girlfriends to start. And it's sort of just really taken off. So I know that's not like very traditional marketing, but people ask me if they can host. They say their friends would think it was so much fun. Right now, we're just sending an invitation through paperless post, which has been great because the flyers in paperless post are free. And it allows me to put all the information, and like paperless post is very organized. So I can put a link to our Instagram, which helps us gain followers very quickly because everybody on the invite ends up following us. We put, links to the lookbook. Sometimes I bring someone else that's like a complimentary vendor. So someone who does eyebrows or someone who does jewelry, things like that. And everyone adds it to their calendar through the paperless post. And so that's like something very unique to my business and to Change of Scenery that's really working. We're currently doing 75% of our sales at these events and 25% on our website. And we were planning on doing 100% on our website. So,
well, and I think too, I don't know what the click-through rate is, or if you just do like a social media marketing, but I just know like if 1,000 people see it, maybe one will click on it. And then out of that one, where if you're more personable or, you're having these events, and they can interact with the product, but of course that's harder to scale. But
it is harder
your
to
sales
scale.
rate should go through the roof, which it sounds like it's doing.
Yeah, I mean, part of the problem is there's only one of me. And I think part of the interesting event is that people like to meet the designer. Obviously, I can give them a lot of fit and style advice that someone who is not me could not give. That said, I'm a terrible salesperson. I'm a designer. So it's not that it can't be replicated because there's many people who would be better at sales than me. But, to start, I think people do like to meet me, and that's like sort of like part of the fun because people, fashion can be very glamorous from the outside. But there is a way to scale it for sure. There are other businesses who I think are doing this really well. There's a cashmere sweater company called Lingua Franca who just started doing trunk show boxes. So you can just sign up to be a salesperson. They vet you, they interview you, and I think they send you just a big box of cashmere sweaters, and then you can go and host, these sort of Tupperware type parties at people's houses and sell $400 cashmere sweaters and make commission. So we're sort of trying to figure out what that scalability is and, how to make that happen. At the same time as like still pulling the other levers, working on how to increase the conversion really on the website because the traffic is fine, but conversion is pretty low for bathing suits. It's a brand no one ever heard of that they haven't tried on yet. So we see like, the add to cart is fairly high, but the pulling the trigger is a little bit lower. And then, I do still believe in traditional wholesale for apparel. So wholesale is the same as any other category, just on the manufacturer and another store would sell it. We are launching with Nordstrom in 2 weeks, which I think you mentioned we'll talk about later. And, just the discovery of being in a department store, Nordstrom has like a few million hits to their site every single day, or maybe a few million hits just to swimwear. I really don't know exactly. I could never possibly have that kind of reach, with the budget that we have.
Yeah, I know on the show Shark Tank, they say life's all about distribution. And of course, being a part of that system or what have you. Transitioning into Nordstrom, how did you go about getting into a store like Nordstrom? It's got to be brutal to fight for shelf space.
Yeah, I've been doing this a long time. I've been doing this for 20 years. So I would imagine it was easier for me than other people. And like, it is not easy. So I really give a lot of credit to people who just sort of start a fashion company out of nowhere because it is a very small industry where everyone like sort of knows everyone within a few degrees. So to do this without connections, I really can't imagine. That said, I don't have connections to the department stores. In a corporate environment like Kate Spade, design is very far removed from a Nordstrom, let's say. So there's the buyers at Kate Spade that sell to Nordstrom, and then there's the merchandisers that work with the buyers, and then there's the designers that, so I'm like 4 degrees separated from Nordstrom at Kate Spade. But luckily I have some very brilliant and close contacts from over the years who are specialists in wholesale. And a dear friend of mine on my behalf reached out to Nordstrom, and it took a few months to even find the right person. Kate Spade is in the dress department at Nordstrom. That's not the department we were looking to get into. You get flipped back and forth to assistants on this team and that team. And then we finally, get to the swim buyer. To be honest, we went through this with a few of the major department stores. They're called majors inside fashion. So, but major department stores. And even with, all of my contacts and her contacts, like in a lot of the department stores, we couldn't end up in the right place. We would go from the dress designer or the dress buyer, who had, you would think, a lot of influence, but I think a lot of people are working from home now too on the department store side. So it's not like they're like sitting next to each other and can mention things to each other. I do think that made it a little bit harder. But once we got the ball rolling, I think we had 1 in person and 4 or 5 virtual meetings with Nordstrom over the course of probably 8 months to sort of get to finalize that we were going to become a vendor for online. And you start online, and to get that shelf space like you're talking about in a department store is so hard these days. I mean, the fashion industry is so saturated. There are just tons and tons and tons of brands. And obviously Nordstrom can have their pick of whoever they want. They have a lot more space on their website and a lot less space in a Nordstrom store, which I mean is big real estate wise, but each department is not very big. So the swim department in Nordstrom is really, really small. They only have between 4 and 6 brands at any given time. And they're 4 or 6 very, very well-known swim brands, very established, maybe, 15, 20 years old. And they explain to us, like, you'll start online. If you do well online, we'll buy more online. And if you do well, eventually, we might give you a shot in some of our stores. But I don't know how that could take years, and I think it's a patience game. I'm very grateful that they're giving us the opportunity online. And again, like I said before, the opportunity to be discovered by millions of their customers that I could never have access to with our marketing budget. And hopefully we can be good partners to them and really focus on them and put some of our marketing budget towards Nordstrom marketing, maybe eventually getting into their swim emails. Everything in fashion, I believe in every industry, is pay to play. And Nordstrom was very honest about that. So I think people think that, everything in Vogue is just because the editors picked it because they liked it. That's not true at all. The editors picked it because they have a good affiliate commission and a click-through rate, or because they spent $100,000 on an ad page, but nothing is free anymore. So we're willing, Nordstrom has been unbelievable partners to us, and I'm so grateful for the support. And so hopefully we can, be partners together in finding ways to promote the brand through Nordstrom.com.
So in the modern day realm, we have the social media influencer. Are you working with those influencers at all, or do you have certain ones that you work with?
So this was like a sort of tricky journey so far. I didn't really understand a lot about marketing. That was never my role at my previous jobs. I started out by having I had a social media agency to start, and they were in charge of our Instagram and our intern Facebook and our email marketing, and also our influencer marketing. So we started out by, the strategy that they put in place was to just sort of like DM random influencers that seemed like a good fit. They would run the influencers by me first, and then we would DM them and offer them free product in exchange for posting on an Instagram in feed and also in stories. And then we would give them like an affiliate percentage through Dovetail, which is now owned by Shopify. And it seemed like it would make sense, and it seemed great to me, except that, of course, no influencers wanted to post for me for just a free bathing suit. Some of these influencers get 3,000 a post, 20,000 a post. And now that I understand what goes into it, it really is a job. They have, some of them have photographers on staff, editing, all this stuff, and they have to be careful. They're building a brand too, so they can't just take on every single brand that offers them free product. But really from the beginning, there were some that wrote back that said that they really believed in my mission, the product, the, target customer, the sustainability. And from the beginning, those were the ones that are still with us today, almost a year and a half later, that just really connected with me and connected with the brand. And that's really what you should what you look for, because their posts are more authentic. They really try on the product, wear the product, choose to bring it on vacation when they're packing their own things. It's the ones that, and again, from the beginning, we could tell this, that sort of just post this very inauthentic caption. And then it just says #ad. And you're sort of looking through their feed, and they post for a different bathing suit company every other day and say it's their favorite. That does not work. Nobody believes those influencers. Nobody buys the things that they say. It's sort of just really? She said she loved another bathing suit company yesterday. But the random DMing did not work. And so then we moved on to LTK, which, if you don't know what LTK is, it used to be called Reward Style or Like to Know It. And if you, now that I'm mentioning it, under most influencers, or at least most fashion influencers, it'll say, interested in buying this, check out my LTK page or check out my Like to Know It page. And you can click on their Like to Know It page, and it goes to a shop that is their unique shop on Like to Know It, where you can shop all the products that they posted and others. And then if you click through and buy it, they get a percentage that the brand identifies. So we give our influencers 15% affiliate commission. So every time one of their audience clicks on their link and buys something on Change of Scenery, they automatically get a 15% commission. Everyone wins. My product is not so expensive, but it's not so cheap. Our average order is about $300. So, that can add up if they get a few clicks through. And I think the way that LTK is set up so that it's mutually beneficial for the brand and the creator is really nice. The creator has to sign a sort of contract with the brand that they're going to receive the free product. And then for all these things that you list out, they're going to complete everything required and they're going to post so that you're not just sending product out to people that like may or may not post it. That didn't work for me. I think if you have like a less expensive product, that is probably a better strategy, but the swimsuits are expensive. So for me to just start sending them to influencers who don't post them, like really wasn't working. So I really recommend LTK. It's not perfect. The messaging system is like a little hard to use, but it's definitely been successful for us. And we've partnered with some really amazing content creators that way.
So LTK sounds like an amazing idea. I can imagine paying an influencer a lump sum on the front end, and they probably get deals all of the time. And so they'll, promote the product and then move on with their life. And so it's like a one and done, where the LTK seems like it's more of a long-term relationship and of course, long-term promotion. Am I getting that right?
Absolutely. And for that reason, a lot of them will continue after the contracted. We require that our influencers do an in-feed post and a story, but a lot of the times after the contracted post and story, they'll post again in stories because like, why not? Like, why not just have more people click through? Or they'll do it during certain times a year, like Memorial Day, we'll send an email to all our influencers and say, reminder, like your code still works, like, post, we have a new collection out, whatever. So yeah, it's definitely true.
All right. So could you tell us a little bit more about what works and doesn't work on social media, perhaps Instagram?
Yeah, I mean, we're just learning, but we've had a lot of learning so far in the past year and a half. Definitely there's so many brands that people can follow on Instagram, and certainly nobody wants like brands clogging up their feed, right? Then you'll never see like your best friend's birthday party or all the things that you're really on there to go through. So we have found that our Instagram posts that make someone feel more like part of the community, where they can really identify themselves in the post, have been much more successful than, infographics or, I thought that when we launched Instagram, we might like educate people about sunscreen and, sustainability and all those things. Those posts do not track at all for us. I think that they're a little bit boring. Like, they're not what you might call thumb stopping, right? You're scrolling, it's something like thumb stopping. Definitely very magical pictures of models like wearing the suits and somewhere that you would like to be or have been successful for us. Just trying to be really careful that our editorial imagery is somewhere that she might really be, not somewhere that like she feels bad that she'll never be, like the yacht that I was talking about earlier. I was posting originally like in the third person. So like I'm the only full-time employee at Change of Scenery. But I would say, our founder, Jamie Banks at, whatever event and this and that. But a few months ago, I started posting in the first person and it has been so much more successful. I think it really makes people know that there is a real person behind the brand and that, like I'm sort of honest with the things that are challenging or the things that are exciting. So for example, if I post like, I'm so excited for our new episode of, this podcast with Brad, like, please listen. Like, I love talking to him about business. Like, it's so interesting what he's teaching his students. That will track way more than saying like, have a listen to our founder, like something like very formal. Like people don't love that. So the other day I went out to dinner with my old boss and most amazing mentor. Her name's Deborah Lloyd. And I posted that I hadn't seen her since COVID. And, we went to Indochine and just some stuff about like how grateful I am to have her in my life. And it was our most successful Change of Scenery post ever. So, I think that people just really like being able to identify and connect. And if it's just like more advertising type stuff, no one needs more of that in their life,
Yeah, I think the connection, the personal connection, like you're saying too, when you go to these events, there's something about connection that's extremely important to people. Something AI can't copy, which we'll come to later.
Yeah.
I'm setting us up.
Perfect.
All right, so let's shift gears into the manufacturing and supply chain side of things. Can you walk us through your manufacturing and what that looks like?
Sure. So, I have a lot of contacts from my former life. So, finding a factory should have been easy. I've always been very close with my factories, and I sort of thought I would just hop, skip, and jump into one of those. But my background is really women's apparel, and most of my factories don't have a swim factory, which is very specialized. So we actually went through the motions of sort of sourcing and interviewing 6 factories in New York, LA, Brazil, Morocco, China, and India. So maybe 7. And working through a few things. I knew I wanted the brand to be sustainable as much as possible. To make a luxury product with the least impact on the environment possible. So now, of course, I will say high level, the most sustainable thing you can do is to not make more product. I know that.
Well, that reminds me of like automakers saying, their goal is to have 0 crashes. I'm like, well, the best way to have 0 crashes is to not make automobiles.
Totally.
So that's not obviously realistic. So
that is not realistic. So yeah, but before like any swimsuits were made, before any sales were made, I decided that I did not want to put more product into the world without grounding the brand in accountability. And, I think that is important to customers these days more than they realize. So, we did a survey very early on called the swimwear anxiety survey. We called it the swimwear anxiety survey. And some of the questions were related to sustainability on a scale of 1 to 10. What's the most important to you when you buy a bathing suit? And I'm sure everyone could guess that a recycled or sustainable bathing suit is pretty far down on the list for a woman age 30 to 55. The most important things were, the obvious ones. She looks pretty, she looks skinny, it holds in her stomach, it's appropriate, it's tasteful, all those things. That said, people are more and more starting to become aware of the products that they're buying and the impact that they have on the environment and the future generations. The woman that I'm targeting is maybe not leading that right now, but I think, the industry is taking steps towards being more accountable. There's talk of maybe having like tax breaks for brands that are rooted in sustainability. And I knew that working at big brands, it's very hard to right size it. So once your supply chain and all your margins are set up for a certain cost of materials, it's very hard to get out of that. So for example, a Kate Spade has 25 years with certain suppliers and fabrics, and that's all feeds into their margins and what their retail price point is. To start using fabrics that are sustainable, that are at least double the cost now, I mean, their margins would fall apart. That can't happen overnight. So I knew that I had to start off that way, not just because it was the right thing to do, but also because it would just be so hard to do it later. We were always going to make our retail prices so that we could wholesale. So in fashion, generally, the wholesaler gets 55% of the sale or 60%, and the manufacturer or change of scenery gets 40 to 45%. So that's a big chunk that they take. It's a big hit to the margin. I think that's different in different apparel, in different fashion categories as well. But for apparel, that's what it is. And I wanted the bathing suits to be under $200. So it was a tricky thing. I wanted to be under 200. I wanted to be recycled, and I wanted to be set up for wholesale. And I should mention, just to like simplify it a little bit. So when brands are strictly direct to consumer, you can charge way lower for the retail price because of course you're making more of the money. So, like a Madewell or a J. Crew, or in swim, a Submersalt or an Andy Swim, those are all direct to consumer. So their retail prices are way lower. And so we had to find a manufacturer that could make all of those things happen at once. Unfortunately, New York was out for a few reasons. The prices in New York are astronomical. I would have to charge $400 or $500 for a bathing suit, and I knew that nobody wanted to pay that, nor did I want to have a brand that only sold $400 or $500 bathing suits. Also in New York, they don't have all the machines to achieve the quality that I was looking for. So sadly, a lot of the workers who were skilled in things like that, or the machines that existed in New York, no longer exist, but they do exist overseas. LA, the prices are much more are much lower than New York. But the trick in LA is that you sort of have to manage everything yourself. So you have to bring it to the cutter to cut the fabric, and then you have to ship it to the factory. It doesn't all happen in one place. And not being in Los Angeles or being familiar with Los Angeles seemed very overwhelming for me to handle. So that made Los Angeles out. And then, different things with different factories. The Morocco factory only spoke French, so that relationship didn't last very long. So we landed in China for the swimsuits. I think China is often a bad word when people are talking about business, but it's really not. Like, there are incredible skilled workers there. They have technology that just doesn't exist in America and other countries. So we're able to finish the bathing suits like super high quality. The construction is amazing. They can source unbelievable recycled materials there. There's just like so much that they're able to achieve. That's really, really impressive. So I'm very proud to work with the factory that we work with in China. And our cover-ups are all made in India. Again, just like incredible artisans there, like, doing techniques with fabric and a lot of organic cottons that don't exist in other places. So that's where we landed.
Okay, so could you tell us a little bit more about the fabric or the material that you're using?
100% of our swimsuits, so our entire swim collection, is made from recycled nylon. The brand is called REPREVE. There are a few really incredible recycled swim fabrics out there in the market. Luckily in swim, it's fairly easy to find beautiful recycled fabrics. So in other categories, the fabrics don't take the color so well or don't feel so nice. But in swim, aside from it being twice the price, the recycled fabrics are beautiful. So we use REPREVE. It's a polyester fiber made entirely from recycled plastic. So REPREVE sources from post-consumer plastic bottles, billions of them. They find a lot of them in the ocean. And instead of ending up in landfills or oceans, they take these plastic bottles and they repurpose them into garments. So Nike uses REPREVE, Tesla uses REPREVE, and Change of Scenery uses REPREVE. It's an incredible product. The fabric is so soft and so beautiful. It takes color and print gorgeous. And the customer's not giving up anything for the recycled fabric. It has wicking properties, water repellency, compression. Like, every time someone walks over to one of the Change of Scenery suits, the first thing they say is, "Oh my God, this feels so beautiful." So that's really nice, because they think like 10, 15 years ago, for sure, you had to give up something to use the recycled fabrics. Definitely color. But a lot of them would feel like sort of crunchy or just like not as like luxurious. That's definitely not the case anymore. Our cover-ups are all made from organic cotton. So the difference between organic cotton and regular non-organic cotton is that it's grown without harmful chemicals. So the soil, the air, the water are free from contaminants. Organic cotton uses a lot less water to grow, because those farmers typically use rainwater and irrigation, and also organic cotton is like such beautiful quality and super soft and lasts longer. So those are all good things. It's obviously very important to me that the customer doesn't have to sacrifice anything for the recycled fabric or the organic fabric. The way that it's recycled into fabric is very interesting. They take the plastic bottles, and you can watch this video. It's on our Instagram or on the REPREVE website. They take the plastic bottles, they clean them, they sort them, they shred it into these like little tiny pellets, like plastic pellets, and then they melt the pellets down. And then they melt the pellets into thread, and they spin the thread. And then they take this thread from the plastic bottle and they weave it into bathing suit fabric. So it's very, very cool to watch. I don't know if you can link a video in the show notes, but it's very cool.
Okay. Yeah, I'll find the link and I'll put it on there. Well, so undoubtedly we're in the age of AI now, and that means a lot of things to a lot of people. I recently did an episode on this, and my guest walked me through showing how he can just create things with AI from scratch, and AI can create new things. It's kind of wild. Do you have any concerns about AI regarding this industry, or as far as like maybe using it? What are your thoughts?
So definitely, like all industries, AI has the potential to revolutionize the fashion industry. But there's a lot of challenges that it brings up as well. But I think that, the benefits are going to far outweigh the challenges. So, with the right approach, that this could be something that's great for fashion. Obviously, like design is one of the first things that you think of. Like, is AI going to replace designers like me and all those things? Really it's more about AI predicting algorithms in trends and fashion. So the concern in fashion is really, is AI going to homogenize fashion? Because if you have, sort of computers or robots predicting what has sold before, what will sell again, obviously there'll be like, pretty amazing advances in this where they can predict that, fashion comes back every several decades. So, we're having a 90s moment now. What is it, 30 years later? Can't believe that, by the way. And AI will help to sort of minimize the risk of creating designs that won't sell. Now, it won't be a perfect science, but it'll certainly be better than just people. Obviously AI will have a better shot at it than we do what we're doing now. But, it's just, will it be at the risk of innovation and creativity? That's sort of to be seen. I don't think designers could be replaced entirely, but maybe, when we set out to design, especially at a big company, the merchandiser's role in the beginning is to really say, okay, we need X amount of what's called core, which is sort of what drives the business. So like a white t-shirt or like your best-selling jeans or something like that. And then you need a little bit of like, newness that will still sell to the masses. And then you get your fashion, like a few things that are just like bananas or wacky or, Rihanna might wear or whatever, but like that doesn't make money, but that does drive the brand. And that shows that you're a fashion forward brand. Maybe AI can't do that part, but certainly AI could figure out like what the best sellers are that you should recolor and you should do again. So definitely, I think it will be a balance. There's worries about the workforce and what happens to the workforce when AI can replace human labor in the factories. And definitely there are efficiencies to be had there, but there's also, jobs to be lost. And you'll see this across all industries. But as fashion is like, factories play a really big part. That is something to be considered. But I think mostly like it's a very exciting time for development and sort of having less waste and being more focused on the things that the customer actually wants and you can provide for them.
Well, yeah, and I think the good news too is, again, we've mentioned this a few times about connecting with the designer, and it's you wouldn't want to have a party and say, "Hey, here's Chat GPT 4,"
Right.
or something like that. Like, there's something about that human connection and belonging and storytelling. I kind of wanted to kind of bookend it there because there's something about being a part of something that I just don't think AI can, mimic. I don't know. That's a kind of a wild card comment, but do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I think it's true. Like, again, like you're saying, we've had a success with these in-person events, and it's not just about me. It's about a group of women getting together and shopping, which is like an age-old thing, right? Like, what's more fun than going shopping with your girlfriends for the day and just having like a lighthearted time? And that can't be replaced by AI. And that experience of an in-person event can't be replaced by AI. But certainly AI could plan the event and maybe it would be a more successful event. I don't know. So, maybe everything's just a partnership there.
So to close this out, how can customers or future customers get in contact with you beyond Nordstrom?
Sure. You can find Change of Scenery at www.shopchangeofscenery.com, or we are at Shop Change of Scenery on Instagram. And please feel free to email me questions about fashion business, or especially if you have questions about fit or styling of a swimsuit. My email is Jamie, JAMIE at shopchangeofscenery.com.
All right. Thanks again for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
And that concludes another episode. Just a reminder, of course, as you've heard before, my book is available, Amazon, wherever you find books online, The Motivated Worker. If you are looking for some motivation yourself or struggling career-wise, trying to make sense of it, or if you have employees that you need to understand what they're looking for From You as a Boss. It's a great book. Check it out. And if you want to help the podcast move along, the best way to do that, that's totally free, is to follow on YouTube, Business Sense with Brad. Follow and subscribe, as well as on your favorite apps such as Spotify. Following and interacting with the podcast is the best way to increase visibility. Take care.